Hello and welcome to Game and Read. I'm Erin.
My name is Peter.
And we are here for another episode of Friday Reads. We tell you what we're playing and reading into the weekend. We give you recommendations. We chit chat. It's good stuff.
Let's talk about what we read and played this past weekend. As I mentioned last week, I was going to play, visit for the first time, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, a game for the PS2 GameCube era that I've had for a little while, but I've never even tried, despite having tried most of the other Tony Hawk games. It's just one I never really got to.
Which is weird because you love Tony Hawk.
Right, but this was back. It came out back when they were annualized. So I was probably still playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and not really worried about getting the next one like 11 months after because I didn't have money for that many games. And then shortly after this one came the Tony Hawk Underground games, which I was more interested in. So I think I just ended up skipping this one. And honestly, I'm glad I skipped it back in the day because it's really not a very great Tony Hawk game. I was having a lot of just not fun with the missions. It's kind of in this pseudo open world where each level's kind of like a hub and you have to talk to somebody to get one of like the missions. There's a lot more like gag missions than I like and not enough just like good trick objectives. I was having a decent amount of just like physics issues, and obviously it's an old game, so it's like, oh, take that, Activision in 2002. But it just was not a... If you're looking to play an old Tony Hawk game, revisit 1 and 2 first. Obviously, the remake's coming out, and that's why I'm playing this in the first place. Or maybe even the Tony Hawk Underground games. Those at least have kind of the best or most modern of like the classic physics before things started switching up in the later generations. So do not recommend trying Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4, but I am so excited for 1 and 2 remake to come out soon.
I also had a disappointing experience with last week's book. This
was just a bad week, guys.
We just picked crappy things. I had picked Fleischmann is in Trouble, and I did not finish it. If you know me, you know that I finish, I'd say 99% of the books I start. It is rare that I really just hate a book enough or have a hard enough time with a book that I put it down. I can count like maybe 10 that I've done that with.
It's very rare, and you often hem and haw about it, until you decide to do it.
Right. And unfortunately, Fleischmann is in Trouble has made it to the Hall of Fame books Erin did not finish. It was just so male-centric, and it was so sex-centric. So the whole premise is that this guy, Toby, is like recently separated, right? He's like moved into his own apartment. He has joint custody with his kids.
# dudes rock.
Right. But, he's just finally, he had met and started dating his now ex-wife before apps and dating swipes and stuff. And so he's like learning all about Tinder. Well, it's not called Tinder, but Tinder and whatever.
A swipey app.
Exactly. And he talks ad nauseum about all the women who are willing to show them their boobs or like their legs or other parts of their bodies. And it was just awful. I was shocked in part because it's a woman author. Like the author identifies as female. I believe she's a cis woman. Okay. But the whole tone felt very like, woe is me. I was just getting into my sexual groove, my new sexual rebirth. And now my crazy ex-wife who screwed me over has dropped the kids off and disappeared. And she's, fucking with my sex life and my newfound shenanigans. And that's as far as I got.
So it became dudes rock with a frowny face.
Yeah. And it just was like, I just couldn't do it. I feel like there were some nuggets in there that could have been interesting, but another book I did not finish was American Psycho. And it gave me
pretty much the same thing. Guy getting stuck with his kids, murderer.
Not the same thing.
No,
but similar vibes. Wait.
So wait, this dude...
Am I thinking of the right book?
Yeah, American Psycho.
By Bret Easton Ellis.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh my God!
I remember you not finishing it and being upset about it, but being upset about it being a bad book by your standards, and me going like, "Oh, well, the movie was pretty good."
Oh yeah. Fleishman's in Trouble gives me like PG American Psycho vibes.
I doubt that's what the author was going for.
I
like, you thought he was about to kill his kids or something?
No, okay, not the killer part, but the
Okay.
misogyny and the just like
Gotcha.
the such a focus on men and what men want and the power and sex and women as just sort of playthings and ugh.
Do you feel like a pivot was coming? Like there was going to be like and now he learns why that's bad.
I don't know.
Or at least, generally frowned upon.
I don't know, because here's the weird thing is that the narrator is a female friend of the protagonist.
Okay.
And it's so weird. I don't know. It was just like nothing was going for me. I did not like any of the characters I had met. I did not like how just gross Toby made me feel as a person. He felt very pathetic and icky and sure a fine father, but like I don't know. I don't know if a pivot was coming. Maybe. I'm not going to find out because I'm not going to read
No, I was just curious if you felt like it was building towards something, but you just like it could have just been like a bad pacing instead of like a bad morals.
Yeah, and that's totally possible.
Bad point of view. I don't know, whatever you would call it.
I read about 75 pages. I try to give books. This is why I almost always finish them, is because I try to give books a good like 75 to 100 pages before I give up. Usually, the majority of books I read are at least interesting enough by page 75 or 100 that I'm like, yeah, I sort of want to know what happens. I'm invested, blah, blah, blah. But this one, page 75, and I was just like, I don't care about these characters. I don't like the pacing. I don't like where I see this story at this point. So maybe it pivots. If you've read this book and it pivots, let me know.
Now for this Friday's Plays and Reads. I'm going to kick this off, and I'm going to be a little repetitive because specifically the game I picked last week was because I was just waiting in anticipation for the game I'm going to be playing this week, which is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1+2, the remake that is coming out this Friday. I'm very excited for it. I've already got it preloaded, and I've played the warehouse demo of the classic first stage
for so
it
many
feels
hours.
Very nice, just that one level, and I've just done a bunch of runs on it. Everything like the physics feel right, the timing feels right, the way everything kind of lays out just feels like if you remember playing those games back in the late 90s, early 2000s and haven't done anything since, and then you pick this up, it's gonna feel like how you remember. Obviously, it's different if you actually put them next to each other, but it feels like how you remember, if that makes sense, where it's like our perception of what games were like back then is a little skewed to what they feel like nowadays as somebody who's played a lot of games from that era. Like, man, this used to look a lot more impressive. Now it doesn't look as good anymore. This feels like what your memories of original Tony Hawk are, and I'm very excited to actually get the full thing unlocked and go through all the different levels. And I think they're adding the weird multiplayer modes that I never really played as a kid, but I think they're having them online, so maybe I'll actually try them, and I'll see how long this tale goes out beyond just, playing through the I think 12 to 15 stages there are, maybe a little bit more than that, if I am misremembering, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's coming out PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and then there was kind of there's probably going to be a Switch port sometime in the near future, if you gotta hold out for that. But if you are a big fan of the Tony Hawk games, I would say based on just me playing the demo, I would recommend it. If you're not sure if you are, I'll have more thoughts on it next week when we check back in.
My Friday reads this week is Long Bright River by Liz Moore. This is a book about two sisters in Philadelphia. Mickey is a cop, and Casey is a sex worker and is dealing with a drug addiction. We see the world from Mickey's perspective as she goes through her life, her struggles with her family, her her professional life and crime in her district. It is non-linear, so we get present day and past, and we get to understand the dynamics between the two sisters.
Does it flip back and forth, or is it like one big chunk, another big chunk?
It flips back and forth pretty well. I'd say there's like 2 or 3 chapters in now and 2 and 3 chapters in past. And so they're always related to each other. It's so far what I've read, it's really nicely done, where Mickey will have some experience or talk about something in the now, and then we get a then chapter or a then section, and it sort of, you get some of the background behind what Mickey's dealing with in the present. The sort of hook is that Casey goes missing, and at the same time, there is a serial killer that crops up in Mickey's sort of district. And are they related? We don't know what's going on. So that is what I'll be reading this weekend. Long Bright River.
Enter recommendations. Every week we recommend something based on just something that's going on in the world. Most of the time mine are just anniversaries, but here we go. Some things we recommend that maybe you'd want to look into this week. I was trying to scour, just trying to figure out what I want this format to be, since we're only a few episodes into doing the Friday reads. And an anniversary I noticed that came up was, it is the 25th anniversary this month of the Command and Conquer series for the it was on the PC and I think Mac back in the day. This is a real-time strategy series of games that released like 14 games in 8 years between like the various expansions and sequels and main games they released, and they're really, I played a bunch of them as a kid. I remember this was similar to my Tony Hawk last week. This is another thing I learned from an older cousin, just watching them play this on their computer and being like, I want to play that game too, and then I get it and then it's fun and I play it for a while. But if you want to see a world in which there's like an evil global cult trying to extract extraterrestrial minerals.
Ooh,
and you got to beat them to the punch, and because they're building an army and stuff. That's what happens in this game. There's also the like Cold War Red Alert version of it. That was kind of their spin-off series that started like the year after this. But these games turned 25, and actually there is a remake of the first 2 games and all their expansions available on Steam that they put out a few months ago. And I was just flipping around. I was like, oh, that looks pretty neat. I haven't jumped into that, haven't bought it, but if I really, really want to play some RTS games, that is something that has some chronological significance right now with an anniversary. And honestly, I have no idea if these are super influential. They were pretty popular among people I knew in the RTS vein, and obviously RTS is what eventually turned into things like MOBAs, but it's kind of a big jump. I don't want to say like Command and Conquer led to League of Legends or anything like that, but there's a slight line of connectiveness between Command and Conquer and StarCraft and Warcraft, and then leading into MOBAs, which tend to be a little bit more popular nowadays than the standard RTS.
My recommendation this week is the book Homegoing by Gyasi. Gyasi's new book, Transcendent Kingdom, is coming out September 8th, so that's Tuesday. And so I thought it would be fitting to recommend her debut novel. Homegoing is about 2 half-sisters. They are both initially born in Ghana. However, their lives go off in totally different directions. One marries an Englishman and lives this life of comfort. The other is sold into slavery and lives a very different and much more painful and oppressive life. Gyasi's really beautifully weaves these stories together, and the book moves through like 18th century Ghana all the way up to present day United States, and it is just really, really beautifully written. It's really powerful. I love the way that the sisters sort of come into orbit of each other, and sometimes they don't even know that they are basically in the same place. There's one really, really powerful story or part at near the beginning where one sister is, staying in this castle, and the other sister is also staying in the castle, but she's being held in the dungeons, essentially. And so it's this juxtaposition of privilege and just total oppression. And it's just beautifully done. It is definitely a pretty heavy book, and it can be tough to read at times. But I also found it really, really meaningful and some really joyful aspects of it. So I would definitely say go pick up Homegoing. I am actually getting Transcendent Kingdom for Book of the Month, so I'm sure that will crop up as a future Friday read. But yeah, Gyasi's just a really wonderful author. So that is my recommendation this week.
That's all we have for you on this episode of Friday Reads. We hope you have a very nice weekend and look forward to the intro for our next pairing coming out in just a couple days on Sunday. As always, you can find all of our posts, episodes, everything you need to find at gameandread.wordpress.com. We publish this podcast to pretty much every podcatcher we can find. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud is our home base for that.
You can find me on social media. I am on Twitter at BookishTextPat, and I am on Instagram at A Tale of Two Shelves.
My Twitter is at Game and Read, and we post to the Game and Read Instagram account.
Our intro music was written and performed by Avery Murchison, and there is a link to his Bandcamp in the description.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Game and Read.